Hey guys, it's Danny. Alrighty, today it's Sunday. Let's have a casual discussion. I actually wanted to do a different video today, but it's okay. Sometimes I do need to let out some stuff. Rant, as it were. So today we're gonna talk about overpriced orchids. What is the difference between normal priced orchids or average and orchids that are expensive? Is it justified, the fact that they are expensive or not? And this comes after I cut yet another leaf from my Ascophanetia peaches. So here's my little orchid. You might remember I had an infection there at the tip of the leaf. Well, today I cut another leaf, this time a lot closer to the crown. And let me show you how the leaf that I cut looks like. There we go. Do you see that little black spot right here? That's the infection. I've seen it before, I know it spreads like wildfire, so I had to cut it. Now you can see that the infection is right where I cut it. Yeah, I didn't properly see when I cut it. I looked at it and then I cut again, just so I make sure I am well under the infection. So don't worry, I did cut everything. And even though this doesn't look like anything now, trust me, it would have taken over the plant. And how do I know this? Well, I told you in a different video, I purchased this orchid with multiple crowns, 4 crowns, 5 crowns, something of the sort. I will look through my archive and try to find the footage. I remember I didn't do a proper video for it. And it just so happens that shortly after I purchased it, it started to develop these sunken in black spots that were taking over the crown, the leaf, and then they were spreading to the crown. And at first I tried to treat them with conventional stuff. I cut a few leaves, I disinfected it, I put some cinnamon to dry out the patches, but new patches kept popping up from all over the plant, and they were all heading towards the stem, which is bad. And in the end, after a few weeks of struggle, I decided, you know what, I'm just going to cut away the crowns that are affected, that keep getting this infection all over the place, and I'm just gonna keep one that is healthy. And I did, and this is the one. And it started again. She was or appeared to be okay for 3 weeks or 4 weeks or so, but then she started to get the patches once again. It started at the tip of the leaf and now it's going towards the crown. You saw the damage. I know it very well. It spreads daily. You see it daily advancing. It's a fungal or bacterial infection anyway. So why am I making such a big case for this? It's a tiny little orchid. I've seen orchids with infections before. I've treated them or I lost them. What's the big deal with this one? Well, it was very expensive. I purchased this orchid from an eBay seller I didn't ever purchase before. He has really great ratings. He has a ton of orchids to sell, quite special hybrids or varieties, and in the pictures they look quite well. The problem is he's very expensive, not expensive, very expensive, at least for me and my possibilities. And if you look at other similar orchids on the market, they're very expensive. And I always wanted to try out an orchid from him because he does have some really unique varieties and species, and I tried with this one. Now, this is the Ascophanetia peaches, or at least I suspect it is from the pictures, but he never actually puts proper names on these orchids. I don't know why that is. You'll always find orchids that you already know about, they're popular species, with all sorts of invented names, and I'm not entirely sure why. Either he gets the species right and invents a variety, either it's just this name you've never heard about, but it's all very fairy tale-ish like. It's really cute. But still, we're serious orchid growers here. I'm just kidding. It's just nice to know the proper names, so you search for the orchids, right? Anyway, so I went ahead and I purchased this orchid. I paid for it. I need to check my eBay and I'll tell you, but I remember close to 40 euros for it, plus shipping, which was an additional 10 to 15 euros. It's an expensive orchid. Which is the most expensive orchid in my collection? This one. It's the Vanda Pachara Delight. She was 40 euros minus transport because I purchased it from the flower shop. So she was up there in price, you know, and for this price, she'd better be something special. Now, it was something special to me, and I was like, alrighty then, I'll pay this much just to see what I get. And behold, this is what happened. Now, I did a video in the past and I told you with orchids you'll always have bad situations when it comes to new orchids. We're not ordering phones and TVs here, we're ordering live things, and they can act and behave very surprisingly. So if this orchid came with an infection, I don't know, maybe it did, maybe it did not. If it reacted to a pathogen in my grow room, I'm not entirely sure yet again, even though none of my orchids display any of these symptoms, maybe they are resistant and this one isn't. So she might have been totally healthy, but when she came here, she reacted to this pathogen and she just is not resistant to it. I don't know. I don't know where the infection came from. But there we go. The fact that I paid a lot of money for this orchid did not exempt me from actually having a bad experience. And that's just the nature of the hobby. All orchids are unpredictable, no matter where you purchase them from. And yes, I totally agree that some orchids need to be more expensive because they're harder to obtain, harder to clone. Maybe they're new hybrids, or maybe they are 4N hybrids, which which are bigger, maybe more colorful, maybe more fragrant. In any case, they're usually more expensive. Maybe it's an awarded cross and so on and so forth. The most expensive store that I know of is Orchid Web, and if you browse their website, you'll see what I mean. Oh, the prices there, oh my goodness. But here's the thing, I do believe those orchids are treated very nice, or actually better than they are treated in other commercial nurseries. Maybe they're more selected before they're shipped to you. Maybe they're in a better state with better roots and so on and so forth. However, though, they're still orchids. It doesn't matter if it's a 4N or a 2N for me. It's still an orchid. Yes, one of them is prettier or smells better, but it's an orchid. It can die. It can get infected. It can be crushed. It can just react to a pathogen in your growing space that other orchids have developed resistance to. So now the question is, what exactly is the price of overpriced orchids? Now, I don't know about you, but when I pay for an orchid, I take into account the possibility of receiving it DOA or crushed or having problems with it further on. If I find a good deal, I'm happy. I'm really happy because always in the back of my mind, there's the hypothesis that I might lose it. Do I want to throw away 10 euros out the window? Maybe I will, because I want to gamble. I want to make sure that I do everything I can to maintain this orchid in good condition or to save it. For 10 euros, you know, it's okay. I can do that. I don't do it every day, and it still hurts when something doesn't go properly, but we're talking about 10 euros here, not 40. So you can see the difference here. And yes, I'm not sure if you feel weird putting prices on orchids, but the truth is they do cost. And not only money, which is a resource very, very limited in our lives, but also sentimental value, which in some cases is just as bad. So you put this investment right in the orchid, and this investment covers everything. Covers your enjoyment, what it is, the price that the seller wants to get for it, the reward practically from the seller, but also it should cover the possibility of you not having success with it. And it's the difference between receiving it crushed and asking for a refund and having it die on you 6 months later because, I don't know, something happened to it. There's that possibility as well. So it covers the price of you being unsuccessful with it. But I don't know if many people think about the eventuality of losing the orchid regarding the price as well. Now, the question of how much we pay for orchids, well, it's really a subjective one. Some orchids are just not meant for everybody. Some orchids are meant for those very serious orchid collectors who like to have special things, unique things, maybe things nobody else has, and they're willing to pay a lot of money for it. But I'm not one of those people, at least not at the moment, and I feel like the vast majority of my viewers are not those collectors who would spend a fortune just to have something really unique. So for us, it's worth to put into perspective the reality of things. Yes, it's nice and dreamy and melancholical and whatever you want to call it, to have an orchid. Oh, I purchased it, but money is not important because look how pretty it is, and it's not important all that much how much I spent for it because look how happy I am and how much this means to me. Yeah, that's nice. I feel that way. But when I get something that costs me 40 euros plus shipping, so 55 euros, let's say, die on me simply because, you know, natural causes, puts things into perspective. So right now I'm left with this bitter taste about the hobby, about the seller, and P.S. I'll never order from that seller again. It's not that I think his orchids are not good, it's just that his orchids are no different than any other orchids when it comes to disease. It doesn't matter if it's an awarded clone. If it gets diseased, it dies like any other orchid. So just for that, I don't want to put myself through the same ordeal. Not saying it's a good thing. I was seriously considering ordering some expensive orchids. You know, you do have to do that one time in your life if you're a really enthusiastic collector. You know what? It's been 5 years since I started this hobby really seriously. I think it's time for me to purchase an €100 orchid. So I was seriously considering this. But the little happening of today put a dent in my little fairy tale, because now I need to consider, what if my €100 orchid will just die? It's an orchid, it dies, it gets infected, it has pests. What do I do then? How will I feel? And the truth of the matter is, I personally would not feel great about it at the stage that I'm at today. So for this reason, I thought, well, why don't I make a video and tell you guys about it and ask you, how do you price your orchids? Did you ever consider that in that price you need to include the fact that you might lose the orchid no matter what, because it is still an orchid? Or is it just me? Did I just have this epiphany? I've always considered losing them, but not necessarily in this way. Or should I say, now I have the practice that meets the theory. I've always had the theory, but now I have the practice. I'm losing a €40 orchid. My other €40 orchid is very well doing. So it's not the same, right? Oh, and I did not include the shipping. So I'm losing a €55 orchid right now. I've never lost a €55 orchid, because the other expensive orchid that I have, which is €40, is doing perfectly fine. So it's a very new feeling for me right now. So that was the theory. Sally, this is the practice. How are you guys judging the price of one orchid? What do you cover with that price? And if any of you have experience with more expensive orchids, let us know down below. What is the difference? Is it more than what I experienced? Do they actually give you a guarantee that 6 months you won't have problems with the orchid? What do they give you for the price they're asking? Because at the end of the day, yes, we are dealing with the live things, and I know smaller sellers don't have the automation that bigger sellers have. And I know that there is a difference between a proper grower and a commercial greenhouse. I know all of those things. But at the same time, we need to think a little bit about ourselves as well, the price we are actually paying for them. So what do you think is important when pricing an orchid? What do you consider? I'm really curious, because today I'm just having that moment where I'm like, damn it, theory and practice. I knew they won't match, but now I'm faced with the situation and I don't feel so good. And at the end of the day, it's not even about the money, it's the worth. I don't know, it's just not worth it. Why are these orchids so incredibly expensive? I feel like we will all benefit from your experiences. And yeah, that's my casual Sundays. For today, I was watering the vandas and I had to chop off another leaf from my vanda, and it's just not pretty. It spoiled a little bit my morning, so I'm gonna go make another coffee. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching this video and hanging out with me. Tomorrow, normal schedule. Today, I just needed to vent a little bit, but it sucks when it happens with a lot of money. And alrighty, so you know the drill. If you've enjoyed this discussion, give it a thumbs up. If you hated it, give it a thumbs down. Subscribe to my channel for regular orchid videos, and let me know your experiences with expensive orchids down below in the comments. And with that said, I'll see you all next time. Bye!